The story of Ready or Not is very obscure, to say the least. At face value, the game presents itself as nothing more than a SWAT simulator, with D Platoon tackling various high-risk missions across the fictional city of Los Sueños. Throughout our missions, we tackle cartels, gangsters, creeps, terrorists, junkies, furries, disillusioned veterans, fanatics, conspiracy theorists, and psychopaths. We face these threats head-on and move to the next mission as if it's the end of the story. However, what lies just out of sight, hidden in the background, is far more sinister. You see, Ready or Not is a game of subtlety. Sometimes. The story presented in each mission is just a piece of the overall puzzle. Through environmental storytelling, audio files, and found documents, we can piece together a fairly good understanding of what is truly occurring in Los Sueños. In this video, I will briefly break down each and every mission in Ready or Not, chronologically fitting together piece after piece to hopefully tell a somewhat coherent story. If you are curious about further information on a specific mission, check the Ready or Not lore playlist on my channel, where I will expand on said mission further, as we will just be covering the basics today. So without further ado, let's discuss the Ready or Not complete timeline.
Move quickly and clear the area.
Long before the United States was even a thing, there was a great storm that devastated ancient Mesoamerica, causing drought, disease, crop failure, and mass death. The specifics of these events remain unclear to archaeologists, but they were significant in human history. Seeking refuge from the calamities ravaging their homeland, many survivors migrated northward, eventually settling in what is now known as Los Sueños. The actual city of Los Sueños was founded sometime in 1781 before California joined the United States. Being a parody of the real-life Los Angeles, Los Sueños shares many similarities. However, its location has been moved to where San Diego should be, along the US-Mexico border. From here, not much is known about Los Sueños' history until the mid-1800s. Assuming this version of California follows the same time frame of when our California became a state, in 1866, 16 years after officially joining the United States, Los Sueños established the first intercontinental railroad, joining the East Coast and the West Coast. By 1867, Los Sueños' first train station was opened. In 1888, gold was first found in the rivers near Los Sueños, leading to an influx of people. Now, this next part is unconfirmed, though we have heavily speculated on this topic in various videos, so I felt I should mention it. We have found a handful of documents, flyers, posters, and paraphernalia to suggest that the Vietnam War had a different outcome in this universe. Instead of presenting it as fact, I'll just provide the evidence and leave it up to you if you believe it or not. Across various maps in the pre-1.0 days, we discovered a reoccurring character in the name of Sergeant Francisco Laguna. We first discovered this man's name in Brixley's office on a name tag that read Sergeant Francisco Laguna, Saigon Operations. This was strange as Saigon no longer exists, as it's now Ho Chi Minh City. This could be two things. It's a remnant from the Vietnam War, left behind when the previous owners were here, or it could suggest a divergence from our reality, where perhaps Saigon never became Ho Chi Minh City due to the US winning the Vietnam War. The next instance of Mr. Laguna was found in Lori Bauer's room, where we found a Department of Defense Certificate of Appreciation awarded to Francisco Laguna for his services in the Vietnam War, dated 1968. This certificate credits Laguna for helping make the American war efforts successful. The presence of Francisco Laguna's Certificate of Appreciation in a famous music producer's home is very strange, and at the time we speculated that maybe Lori Bauer is actually Francisco Laguna under a fake name. The certificate dated 1968 confirms Laguna's involvement in the Vietnam War, specifically in Saigon operations before the city's fall, collaborating with the Navy and the Air Force. From here, his name pops up in various locations across various maps. However, after the 1.0 update, most, if not all, of the Francisco Laguna name references were removed, which likely points to the fact that they were just placeholders. But this is not the end of our alternate Vietnam War speculation. On the old Port Hoken map, we could find declassified documents related to the USS Kitty Hawk dated around March 1st, 1972. What the document says is unclear, but what's notable is that the same year, during its journey to the Gulf of Tonkin during the Vietnam War, a race ride erupted between white and black sailors aboard the ship, involving over 200 sailors and resulting in over 50 injuries. though fortunately no fatalities. Also on this same map, there is a flyer for the 9 Rules of Conduct card, which was carried by US soldiers during the Vietnam War. At the pre-1.0 4U gas station, we can discover that Mudasir Varma had a US Department of Defense Certificate of Appreciation awarded to him, which was the same type of certificate associated with Francisco Laguna, potentially implying he also did some kind of work in Vietnam, though this award is gone in the latest version of the map. Also on this map, we can find a magazine that says America's 52nd President, which is strange as by 2025, when this map takes place, the US should be on president number 47. So at some point in the timeline, there was a rapid turnover of 5 presidents in a very short period of time. This could be due to various major events, such as deaths, assassinations, or impeachments. This adds further evidence to the fact that the game's timeline has diverged from our own, and that divergence could possibly be due to the US winning the Vietnam War. The allusions to an alternate Vietnam continue. On a plaque in the entrance of the LSPD precinct, we can learn about the LSX airport siege by the People's Liberation Party, which could be a Vietnamese terrorist group seeking revenge on the US for its involvement in the Vietnam War. Now, this next part is probably the weakest bit of evidence, so bear with me. And the last piece of evidence comes from the Tran family. The mother's note to her sons mentions stories about the war and how they endured hardships to secure a better life away from the violence. Given that the Tran brothers were born in 1991, 2000, and 2003, and to my knowledge, Vietnam wasn't particularly dangerous during that time, so their mentioning of seeking a better life away from the violence suggests that there was still unrest affecting the country years later. And since we don't know when they immigrated to the US, this could indicate that there was some kind of conflict occurring in the late 80s or early 90s. Now, all of this together could suggest one of two things. One, there's something going on in Vietnam. It could mean we won the Vietnam War, or the war itself was different in some way, shape, or form. Or two, most of these references are just placeholders and are meant to be ignored, as they'll be replaced with something else at a later point, as we've already seen with the Francisco Laguna stuff. I have a feeling it's number 2, but I really hope it's number 1, because that would add such an interesting layer of lore to the overall universe of Ready or Not, and open the door to various narrative possibilities, but I digress. Around the 1950s and 60s, the United States Intelligence Agency, or USIA, secretly began LSD experiments on the population of Los Sueños. It is unknown what became of this or what the results were, but this is a clear allusion to the real CIA MK Ultra experiments, where mind control and behavior modification were explored using various drugs, including LSD. The parallels suggest that the experiments in Los Sueños might have been part of a similar covert operation, potentially with lasting and undisclosed impacts on the local population. We've theorized before that, unlike the CIA in our reality, the USIA were actually successful in creating mind control technology, which they then used to control various individuals in places of power. One of which is our player character, David Judge Beaumont. We find evidence to suggest that the USIA inserted one of these plants into a leadership position within the LSPD. This individual is called Gamma 1, however, written on this classified USIA document, we can see the text, Beaumont. Also, ex-USIA analyst Gerard Scott tries to get a message to Judge, specifically asking him to not be a puppet and to break the cycle. Sometime around 1996 and 2008, there were 2 major crises to hit Los Sueños, both resolved by D Platoon and their leader, H. Lincoln. First, involving the aforementioned PLP during their infamous LSX airport siege. Lincoln's unit confronted the PLP, where he neutralized 4 gunmen, including one attempting to bring down a passenger jet with a guided missile, earning him the Medal of Valor for saving hundreds of lives. Following the siege, suspects from the Sovereign American Militia attempted to detonate a portable nuclear device at Los Sueños' City Hall. After an intense gunfight across multiple floors, Lincoln and his team successfully neutralized 6 suspects and arrested the remaining 4, and apprehending Tobias Strong within 20 minutes. This heroic act was broadcasted live, leading to Lincoln, Officer James Horton, and others receiving the Police Commission Unit citation from the US President. Sometime around 2017, a hydroelectric dam was condemned after some unknown group of individuals launched an attack on it, as confirmed by ex-USIA agent Elaine Raskin. Assuming Los Sueños is analogous to LA, where 16% of the city's power come from hydroelectric facilities, the neglected dam could mean that Los Sueños has been losing 16% of its energy output for the past 8 years. Also, at some unknown point in time, a key player in Los Sueños' energy landscape and a prominent natural gas company called Blue Fuel faces a critical issue, as their once abundant natural gas reserves are now on the brink of exhaustion. These 2 factors have caused an energy crisis to hit Los Sueños, with the city being periodically hit with blackouts. At some unknown point in recent years, a drought has been affecting the Los Sueños area, causing water shortages and raging fires across the land. While this drought has heavily impacted the Los Sueñans, it appears to have affected those across the southern border far more, as by the mid-2020s, water protests in Tijuana have begun to turn violent as people grow more and more desperate, and due to said water protests, fights have begun to break out along the border. In early 2025, sanitation workers in Los Sueños went on strike, resulting in widespread garbage piling up across the city. According to a magazine found on the Mindjot facility, it has been 35 weeks since the strike began, placing the start date around May 2025. Around the same time, DeMonco Security Services, which handles money transportation between banks and ATMs, also went on strike. This disruption has made it difficult for residents to access their funds, exacerbating financial instability. By 2026, neither strike has been resolved, leading to significant trash accumulation throughout the city, and the ongoing financial crisis has contributed to a sharp rise in homelessness and crime. Multiple 911 calls reported a robbery in progress at the 4U gas station in Southside, involving several armed suspects. The conditions of the manager, Mudasir Varma, Charla Layton, her daughter Crystal, and other civilians are unknown. The suspects, identified as Andre Williams, Zion Pretlow, and Jaden Fletcher, all have histories of drug-related or violent crimes and may be under the influence of methamphetamine. The robbery appears calculated, coinciding with a cash pickup by DeBonco. Unfortunately, after D Platoon apprehended the robbers and gained control of the situation, Mudasir Varma was found dead, likely murdered before their arrival. A suspected terrorist incident is unfolding at the Neon nightclub, where reports indicate an active shooting. Gunmen have fired into the crowd, and the club has been barricaded with large vehicles blocking the exits, while the entrances are secured from the inside. The Yemeni terrorist organization, The Hand, has claimed responsibility for the attack, with several shooters live-streaming the event, although the feeds are being cut. The LSPD paramedics and local hospitals are on high alert. The situation is severe due to the club's overcapacity and the presence of the high-profile act, Live Rat, which, in case you didn't know, is a reference to Deadmau5. At least 4 gunmen with automatic weapons are inside, and one may be wearing an explosive vest. D Platoon would successfully bring the situation under control, neutralizing all members of the Hand except their leader, Zahir Asadullah. After the incident, the death toll is uncertain, but it may be in the hundreds. An active shooting is unfolding at Coastal Grove Medical Center, where gunmen have forced their way inside. Initial reports and social media analysis suggest that the attackers are affiliated with the Hand. Some of the gunmen are disguised as hospital staff, so anyone in a uniform or acting suspiciously must be detained. The exact number of shooters remains unknown, but they are reportedly firing at anyone they encounter. This attack may be in retaliation for the capture of Zahir, who was recently assaulted by corrections officers and was transferred to this medical center for treatment. While we don't know the outcome of this raid, or if Zahir survived once again, we did, however, discover Zahir's ultimate plan, which urges his followers to continue feeding this chaos by targeting vital infrastructure like medical facilities and power sources. There is a critical situation at Cherriessa Family Vineyards in Santa Vino, where an officer is down and another is under fire. Officer Garcia is stranded and facing heavy fire, while Sergeant Perez is confirmed dead. The LSPD is responding with all available units, but immediate action is required. Earlier in the day, a group of women from the vineyard attacked a man in a convenience store and fled in a white Ford, registered to Elaine Raskin, an ex-USIA operative with sealed records. The primary goal is to rescue Officer Garcia from the central courtyard, establish a perimeter, and make contact with Raskin. In the end, it is unknown what became of Officer Garcia, as after D Platoon arrives and secures the scene, her body was never found. A few graves can be discovered, but whether or not any of these contain Officer Garcia is currently unknown. There has been a shooting at McCade Station, where 3 officers are critically injured and 3 are deceased. Gerard Scott has been identified as the suspect. He orchestrated the attack by setting a car on fire near the station and opening fire with a rifle when police arrived. Scott then escaped in an RV, which has been traced to a compound on Sullivan Slope. Scott previously worked at the USIA in an office role and has no known connections or motives, making him a strange and dangerous individual. It is currently unknown how this mission ended or if Gerard and his accomplices survived. After obtaining a lead from a gang member arrested during the 4U gas station robbery, the house at 213 Park was identified as a meth lab. Additional intel came from a hit-and-run victim who turned out to be a gang runner escaping torture by the Los Locos. In exchange for immunity, he provided more details about the lab, which spans 2 vacant properties, one foreclosed and one perpetually covered by a fumigation tent. After this raid, it is unknown what became of the suspects on scene, but intel suggests that the Los Locos members got off with a slap on the hand, with the meth heads likely staying incarcerated. We have a critical situation at Barisa Cove Memorial Park, where Senator Cornelius Fremont, a presidential candidate, was the target of an assassination attempt during a rally. The shooter came from a building south of the park, and reports indicate several suspects are holed up on the 12th floor. The senator, who recently faced threats from a veterans group due to his support of a controversial funding cut, is in critical condition. The park is secured and the building has been cleared up to the 12th floor. D Platoon is to search all apartments with a view of the park and flush out any suspects. After the raid, it was discovered that this attack may have been orchestrated by other unknown parties, as the intel the Left Behind had on the senator was substantial. The LSPD have received reports that indicate a potential threat at the Clemente Hotel, where the Fremont family is staying. This is the family of Senator Cornelius Fremont, who was nearly assassinated just hours prior by the same group attacking the family now. Senator Fremont's son, Michael, alerted hotel security about armed suspects trying to enter via the fire escape. Security has locked down the hotel and is monitoring the hallways, but not the penthouse suite. D Platoon was able to save the Fremont family as well as their security personnel, earning them praise from both. LSPD has confirmed the location of an active coyote stash in Muerto Mesa, where the Los Locos gang is planning a mass evacuation, including people, products, and cash. Surveillance is in place using Border Patrol drone feeds, and a helicopter is ready for deployment. The site has been mapped with aerial imagery showing a long road leading to a ranch known as Rancho del Sueños. The operation will involve entering the house to access the tunnels, which are currently unknown in depth, complexity, or exits. Los Locos are expected to be heavily armed and aggressive. The goal is to retrieve as many people as possible without escalating the situation. The end result of this raid is unclear, though D Platoon does discover ancient pieces of art that contain unique carvings of a large storm washing away the ancient people, causing extreme suffering. Active shooters have been reported on the Watt Community College campus, specifically in the science wing. There are at least 2 shooters, though reports vary, and 2 campus security officers are on the scene, one of whom is a former LSPD officer. The plan involves locking down the science wing and hitting all 3 main entrances simultaneously to prevent the shooter's escape. Uniformed officers are securing the campus and assisting with the operation, which will be conducted with lethal force due to the threat's severity. It is believed D Platoon neutralized the suspects, but the total number of casualties remains unknown, but is likely high. A situation has developed at the Los Sueños Postal Service on 7th Ave, where 2 detectives from the Criminal Investigation Unit were caught in a gunfight with suspected Los Locos gang members while meeting with Customs Inspector Jack Adams. One detective is critically injured and en route to Yana Memorial Hospital. Multiple shooters remain inside the building, and the priority is to locate them and find Jack Adams, who is likely still inside. The Federal Investigation and Security Agency, or FISA, has requested that Adams be captured alive, instructing D Platoon not to harm him. While unconfirmed, the raid may have pointed the LSPD toward the Tran brothers, who are implicated in the same gun-running operations as Adams was discovered to be. A situation is developing involving the Tran brothers, who are linked to a weapon modification ring operating out of Caesar's Cars dealership in North Hills. The dealership is a front for illegal activities, supplying parts to convert semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic ones. On Tran, a mechanical engineer, is modifying these weapons in the attic of their family home. The brothers, facing financial distress due to their mother's terminal illness, have turned to this illegal operation to cover medical bills and debt. The plan is to execute a careful raid on their home, aiming to avoid a gunfight if possible. The objective is to secure the attic and gather intelligence on the Tran brothers' operations and connections. After the raid, the intel collected, combined with information from LSPD undercover officers, has pointed investigators toward Caesar's Cars. In an apartment complex in San Uriel, Michael Williams has barricaded himself in his apartment after killing his mother, Cassandra Williams, and is currently with his brother, DeMarcus. Attempts to communicate with Michael have failed, and there has been multiple reports of gunfire within the building. Other residents in nearby apartments have either been evacuated or are sheltering in place. The officers are preparing to make entry, aware that Michael might be armed and moving between apartments 13, 14, and 15, which he owns. In the end, we discover Michael Williams didn't kill his mother, and he was just a victim of being swatted while streaming online. However, unbeknownst to the prankster, Michael was actually involved in illegal activities, including running a private server farm. When the police arrived, the guards he had hired reacted aggressively, sparking a confrontation. This accidental raid exposed Michael's involvement in hacking Mindjot's servers, leading law enforcement to uncover disturbing content on the platform. While Michael was not affiliated with other criminals, the raid uncovered a large conspiracy involving child predators linked to Mindjot. A raid is planned for the Mindjot data center at 52 East, Temple Hill Street in Kalina Beach. Although Mindjot is financially struggling, the team must minimize property damage to preserve hardware vital to the cybercrimes unit's investigation. The exact threat level inside is unknown, but the Mindjot security team is well armed and likely on edge due to prior incidents involving robberies and a kidnapping that resulted in a guard's death. If security refuses to surrender, it may suggest that they are aware of the critical data they are protecting. While the facility is operating on a skeleton crew, the team must be cautious to avoid harming civilians, who could be mistaken for security staff. The data center is suspected of involvement in a large operation, making it crucial to preserve the hardware and uncover key information. After the raid, decrypted metadata from Mindjot drives seized during the raid has led the LSPD to a man named George Brixley, located in the Row. George Brixley, a convicted kidnapper and sex offender, is believed to be operating a sex trafficking ring disguised as a talent agency in the poorest neighborhood of Los Sueños. The LSPD has a warrant for Brixley's arrest and anticipates that he will be armed due to his firearms training and his reluctance to return to prison. On site, it is discovered that Brixley is protected by a group called Bolton Security, who appear to be paid off by a wealthy benefactor. This benefactor is identified as Amos Vole, whose name repeatedly appears around the facility and is directly mentioned by the security personnel. D-Platoon has been sent on a high-risk operation to arrest Amos Vole, who was discovered to be a CP producer. Vole has ties to a shell company in Romania and has been transferring money to Brixley's business for years. On site, there are many heavily armed Bolton security personnel, many of which are ex-military or ex-cops. The operation will take place at Vole's house, located in a wealthy area with higher-profile residents. Complicating matters, a birthday party for Vole's teenage daughter, Janie, is underway. D-Platoon has to move quickly due to the imminent asset seizure in Romania, which could alert Vole and lead him to destroy evidence. While it is not confirmed, Vole's arrest may have set the LSPD's sights on bigger targets in the CP ring. Evidence found at Vole's house and Brixley's agency showcase odd and cryptic letters and paintings, as well as the continued reoccurring symbol of a spider. A rapidly escalating situation is unfolding at Caesar's Cars in North Hills. Detectives from the Auto Theft Task Force were executing a routine warrant service when a shootout erupted, leaving several officers down. The dealership, long suspected of being a front for illegal weapons trafficking, was under surveillance for a major deal scheduled that night. However, the cover was blown before the raid team could intervene, resulting in a loss of control over the situation. One undercover detective, Agent Greer, has been confirmed dead, while another, Agent Esperanza, is alive but in grave danger. The team must act immediately to secure evidence and regain control of the scene. In the end, this operation, along with several prior raids, suggests a connection to a large sex trafficking ring operating out of Port Hogan. A significant transnational arms deal has been uncovered, involving local arms dealers supplying modified weapons to cartels and smugglers in Mexico via Russian container ships along the western seaboard. Intelligence from Caesar's car dealership has traced the operation to Port Hogan in Los Sueños, where over $1 million worth of weapons are exchanged every few weeks. This information, gathered over a long period of time, was confirmed when Agent Esperanza shared his findings and an LSPD informant providing details about a major deal scheduled for that night. The operation is a joint effort by the LSPD, FISA, and ATF. To make matters even worse, the Category 5 Hurricane Antonio is expected to make landfall that night, potentially causing widespread destruction. Despite the hurricane, the raid was a massive success, with law enforcement disrupting the deal and discovering an auction where the Spider organization would buy and sell women. A home invasion is currently in progress, with armed individuals having forcibly entered the residence, possibly taking hostages. Shots have been fired, but not at the hostages. The invaders, who have barricaded themselves inside, belong to the United Planet Front, a violent eco-terrorist organization. Civilians, including the homeowners, their children, and staff, are still inside. A silent alarm from the panic room has been triggered, suggesting someone may be hiding. While it is likely that D-Platoon successfully rescued the family, post-attack intel suggests that, similar to the Left Behind, the UPF's assault may have been orchestrated by other unknown parties. A condemned dormitory in Greenside has become a shelter for vagrants and addicts, especially after the hurricane. This property, now unstable and at risk of collapse, has been elevated on the priority list due to increased activity and reports of gunfire. An officer was injured during an altercation inside the building, and D-Platoon has been called to assist. Although this isn't their usual work, they need to adapt given the city's strained resources post-hurricane. The building is a sanctuary for many of its inhabitants who are desperate and scared, having lost much in the storm. The team's mission is to clear out the building safely, as local shelters and programs are in place to assist the displaced. D Platoon likely completed this mission without any hiccups, and probably consider this a walk in the park, especially after the past few days they've had. An urgent situation has arisen at 213 Park, where undercover officer Mike Esperanza's cover has been compromised while infiltrating the Los Locos gang. Reports indicate an assault is underway at Esperanza's home, and a distressing call from him suggests the situation is dire. Screaming has been reported from multiple sources, and forced entry into the home has been confirmed. Due to the hurricane, patrol units are short-staffed and are holding back until D Platoon arrives. The area is chaotic, with damaged streets and frightened civilians. The team is advised to maintain clear judgment, avoid harming civilians, and prepare for a potentially grim scene. After addressing the Los Locos threat, D Platoon does find Esperanza alive but severely injured, having been brutally tortured by the Sicarios, as a warning to the LSPD to stay away from their operations.